Okay.
Okay, you sit.
Yes.
So as we are meeting in Australia, before we begin our meeting, we want to acknowledge that we are guests on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander land. They have been given the commission from time immemorial in their law to be custodians of this land, and we want to pay our respects to them, to their elders, to be able to keep on that culture of land and water and people care that for thousands of generations, which is something worthy of respect. And so we just pause to acknowledge that and acknowledge that we want to inherit that understanding, and we also want to preserve them and their culture for as a world heritage. Thank you.
Of the riches, both of the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments and his ways, past finding out. For who has known the mind of the Lord? Oh, who has become his Counselor? Oh, who has first given to him, and it shall be repaid to him. Oh, the depth of the riches, both of the wisdom and knowledge of God. Unsearchable are his judgments and his ways, past finding out. For who has known the mind of the Lord? Or who has become his counselor? Or who has first given to him, and it shall be repaid to him. For of him, and through him, and to him are all things, to whom be glory forever. For of him, and through him, and to him are all things, to whom be glory forever. For who has known the mind of the Lord? Oh, who has become his counselor? Oh, who has first given to him, and it shall be repaid to him. For of him, and through him, and to him are all things, to whom be glory forever. For of him, and through him, and to him are all things, to whom be glory forever. Amen. Forever.
endowed every hour of these days with a special virtue, inscrutable to all except thee. Thou hast endowed every hour of these days with a special virtue, inscrutable to all except thee. Fasting is the cause of the elevation of one spiritual station. Fasting is the cause of the elevation of one spiritual station. Even though outwardly the fast is difficult and toilsome, yet inwardly it is bounty and tranquility. Fasting is the supreme remedy and the most great healing for the disease of self and passion. Fasting is the cause of the elevation of one spiritual station. Fasting is essentially a period of meditation and prayer, of spiritual recuperation, during which the believer must strive to make the necessary readjustments in his inner life and to refresh and reinvigorate the spiritual forces latent in his soul.
So, could we have the readings now? And I hope, Ran, you feel welcome and great to have you amongst us. And we'll listen to you later. And now to the readings. The first reading.
O God, thou who hast cast thy splendor over the luminous realities of men, shedding upon them the resplendent lights of knowledge and guidance, and hast chosen them out of all created things for this supernal grace, and hast caused them to encompass all things, to understand their innermost essence, and disclose their mysteries, bringing them forth out of the darkness into the visible world. He verily showeth his special mercy to whomsoever he will. O Lord, help thou thy loved ones to acquire knowledge and the sciences and the arts, and to revel the secrets that are treasured up in the inmost reality of all created beings. Make them hear the hidden truths that are written and embedded in the heart of all that is, making them to be ensigns of guidance amongst all creatures and piercing rays of the mind, shedding forth their light in this, the first life, Make them to be leaders unto thee, guides unto thy path, runners urging men unto the kingdom. Thou verily art the powerful, the protector, the potent, the defender, the mighty, the most generous. Abdul-Baha.
Thank you, Robert. And you?
Daniel spoke and said, Blessed be the name of God from everlasting even unto everlasting. For wisdom and might are his, and he changeth the times and the seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise, and knowledge to them that know understanding. He revealeth the deep and secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. I thank thee and praise thee, O thou God of my fathers, who hast given me wisdom and might, and hast now made known unto me what we desire of thee. For thou hast made known unto us the king's matter. Keshuvim writings, Daniel 2:20-23. For to one is given by the Spirit the word of wisdom, to another the word of knowledge by the same Spirit, to another faith by the same Spirit, to another the gifts of healing by the same Spirit, to another the working of miracles, to another prophecy, to another discerning of spirits, to another diverse kinds of tongues, to another the interpretation of tongues. But all these worketh that one and the selfsame Spirit, dividing to every man severally as he will. King James Bible, 1 Corinthians 12:8-11.
Thank you. Ahmed, yes.
There is no God but He, that is the witness of Allah, His angels and those endued with knowledge, standing firm on justice. There is no God but He, the exalted in power, the wise. Holy Quran, verse 3. And when ye are told to rise up, Allah will raise up to suitable ranks and degrees those of you who believe and who have been granted mystic knowledge. And Allah is well acquainted with all ye do. Holy Quran, verse 58. And as long as the absolutely true knowledge and insight as regards these four noble truths was not quite clear in me, so long as I am not sure whether I had won the supreme enlightenment which is unsurpassed in all the worlds with its heavenly beings, evil spirits and gods, amongst all the hosts of ascetics and priests, heavenly beings and men. But as soon as the absolutely true knowledge and insight as regards these four noble truths had become perfectly clear in me, there arose in me the assurance that I had won that supreme enlightenment unsurpassed. Buddha, the Word, the Eightfold Path.
Thank you, Ahmed. Asanta.
The religion of God is the promoter of truth, the establisher of science and learning, the supporter of knowledge, the civilizer of human race, the discoverer of the secrets of existence, and the enlightener of the horizons of the world. How then could it oppose knowledge? God forbid. On the contrary, in the sight of God, knowledge is the greatest human virtue and the noblest human perfection. To oppose knowledge is pure ignorance, and he who abhors knowledge and learning is not human being, but mindless animal. For knowledge is life, felicity, perfection, and beauty, and cause the soul to draw nigh to the divine threshold. It is the honor and glory of human realm and the greatest of God's bounties. Knowledge is identical to guidance, and ignorance is essence of error. Happy are those who spend their days in pursuit of knowledge, in the discovery of the secrets of the universe, and in the meticulous investigation of truth.
Colin.
Know that there are two kinds of knowledge, the knowledge of the essence of a thing and the knowledge of its attributes. The essence of a thing is known only through its attributes. Otherwise, that essence is unknown and unfathomed. As our knowledge of things, even of created and limited ones, is of their attributes and not of their essence, how then can it be possible to understand in its essence the unbounded reality of the divinity? For the inner essence of a thing can never be known, only its attributes. For example, the inner reality of the sun is unknown, but it is understood through its attributes, which are heat and light. The inner essence of man is unknown and unfathomed, but it is known and characterized by its attributes. Thus, everything is known by its attributes and not by its essence. Even though the human mind encompasses all things, and all outward things are in turn encompassed by it, yet the latter are unknown with regard to their essence, and can only be known with regard to their attributes. How then can the ancient and everlasting Lord, who is sanctified above all comprehension and imagining, be known in his essence? That is, as created things can only be known through their attributes and not in their essence, the reality of the divinity too must be unknown with regard to its essence and known only with respect to its attributes. Abdu'l-Baha, some answered questions.
Thank you, Colin. Min.
Govern thy heart, constrain the entangled sense, resist the false, soft sinfulness which saps knowledge and judgment. Yea, the world is strong, but what discerns it stronger, and the mind strongest, and high over all the ruling soul. Wherefore, perceiving him who reigns supreme, but put forth full force of soul in thy own soul. Fight, banish foes and doubts, dear hero, slay what haunts thee in fond shapes and would betray. Hindu Bhagavad Gita, Edwin Arnold.
So then Stacy.
Thou hast asked concerning the fundamentals of religion and its ordinances. Know thou that first and foremost in religion is the knowledge of God. This attaineth its consummation in the recognition of his divine unity, which in turn reaches its fulfillment in acclaiming that his hallowed and exalted sanctuary, the seat of his transcendent majesty, is sanctified from all attributes. And know thou that in this world of being, the knowledge of God can never be attained, save through the knowledge of him who is the day spring of divine reality, the Bab.
Thank you, Tracy. Ryan.
Yeah. We cherish the hope that though the loving kindness of all wise, the all-knowing, obscuring dust may be dispelled and the power of perception enhanced, that the people may discover the purpose for which they have been called into being. In this day, whatsoever serveth to reduce blindness and to increase vision is worthy of consideration. This vision acts as the agent and guide for true knowledge. Indeed, in the estimation of men of wisdom, keenness of understanding is due to the keenness of vision. The people of Baha must under all circumstances observe that which is meet and seemly, and exhort the people accordingly. Tablets of Baha'u'llah. O God, dispel all those elements which are the cause of discord, and prepare for us all those things which are the cause of unity and accord. O God, descend upon us heavenly fragments and change this gathering into a gathering of heaven. Grant to us every benefit and every food. Prepare for us the food of love. Give us the food of knowledge. Bestow on us the food of heavenly illumination. Abdul Baha.
Rely upon God, trust in Him, praise Him, and call Him continually to mind. He verily turneth trouble into ease, and sorrow into solace, and toil into utter peace. He verily hath dominion over all things. He verily hath dominion over all things. Rely upon God, trust in Him, praise Him, and call Him continually to mind. He verily turneth trouble into ease, and sorrow into solace, and toil into utter peace. He verily hath dominion over all things. He verily hath dominion over all things.
Thank you, Siva, for leading us through those music and chanting and readings. And thank you for choosing the ones that are very relevant to our times. And fasting started for Christians last Wednesday with Lent season. And so the second part of the music at the beginning was pretty apt. And that was good teaching as well on fasting. And the last one that I was thinking that as we go through very troubling times in the world and in our own country with the floods, worrying about the future of the world and the international relationships, and particularly Ukrainians, the troubling times, that was very peaceful, the last chant. Thank you for that, turning trouble into ease and peace. Yes, knowledge, understanding, the essence of what we understand, and of course the discernment. We have the right person today in our midst, Ran. I hope I will pronounce your surname well, because my surname is always spelled in many ways. So my two sons also go through that, and my wife. Is that you pronounce it Fuchs?
Fuchs, like
Fuchs.
books, like books. You say Fuchs.
Fuchs. Lovely. Thank you, Ran, for being in our midst. And Ran is going to bring to us reflections, and he'll talk on Zen Koanic way of resolving ambiguities in the Bible. And I don't know why Siva wanted me to be the MC. I'm not a scholar. I have been a minister for 46 years. So to a certain extent, I have been guided by the word of God, and the history and of Hebrew people, later on Jewish, and the Hebrew Bible have been guide all these years in my ministry. You have been fully absorbed in history, living in Jerusalem, trying and to connect it with Hebrew Bible. Old Testament was written in Hebrew language, so it's not a surprise that you are encouraged to do that, and we appreciate it. So you have the experience of talking to people of different cultures and different religions, and so here we are of different backgrounds, invited by Siva and his wife, and all these lovely people who have been going through interfaith conversation every week. So I've been in that for some time, and I took a break for some time, but today I've come back. And your background with your scholarship includes mathematics, and you're a mathematician, and you have been an ex-CEO of a fintech company, and I'm sure people would have tried to sort of read about you, and you are devoted to understanding the Bible as much as I do. And I'm looking forward to listening to you, and I'm sure all of us here, because it's good to listen to the root language of the Old Testament Hebrew, and then the Greek for New Testament. And so looking forward to your sharing. Thank you. The floor is yours.
All right. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you so much. So for the kind introduction, so I barely need to introduce myself anymore, but I'll just in short, I want to let you know, by the way, okay, I'll share it when I need it later. In short, I'll just let you know, I was born and raised in Jerusalem. Hebrew was my first language. And as a young person, every weekend and holidays, I took the Bible with me to tour the country and to try to see, in my mind's eyes at least, how the stories of the Bible fit into the scenery around me. Then as an adult, for many years, I moved around the world, mostly on business, and I did many different things. But the one thing that I kept doing, I kept taking with me, was the Bible. And every now and then, when I had time, when things were hard, or sometimes when things were good, I would just open it, quite often randomly in a page, and then think about what I was reading. Sometimes I would just read a single verse, maybe 2 or 3 verses, and I would think about it. And they would stick in my mind, maybe for a day, maybe much longer, sometimes for weeks. And I was thinking about them over and over, trying to understand what they meant for me. Because my feeling was always that the Bible is not a book. It's a book that speaks to me. And I'm sure that if somebody else read it, it speaks to them, very different to the way they speak to me. So since I retired about 5 years ago, I'm devoting myself to my spiritual path. And this one includes, of course, the Bible. It includes Zen and meditation, and it includes photography. And people might not understand, but for me, photography is part of the spiritual path because it helps me see the world the way it is. Just I'm learning how to see, maybe for the first time in my life. So when I was traveling around the world, I had many discussions about religions. And I was in Japan, and I was in India, and I was in Bangladesh, and I was in Iran. And I was speaking to different people with different religions. And from all of them, I find myself, after a while, very attracted to Buddhism, and especially the more esoteric side of it, the Zen and the Chan. And it's also complemented throughout the years. I've been practicing martial arts, so it really complemented the martial art training. So slowly, a bit by bit, the two spiritual paths started to merge in my mind. And I started to look at the Bible more as a guide to my life rather than a history book. So for me, it became a book in which every story was meant to help reveal something deep, something about myself, about the world. It helped me pull out things hidden deep inside me. Now, the stories of the Bible became spiritual guides for me, and their historical validity became quite unimportant. Now, I'm not saying that the stories of the Bible are not true. All I'm saying that the question of whether they are true or not, or what's the actual physical truth behind them, become only secondary. So the way I see it now is that the Bible is here to guide my spiritual path, not to teach me history. And I've had this discussion many times. So before you jump and passionately disagree with me, claiming that the Bible is true, as often happens to me when I raise this point, sometimes I'm afraid to raise it. So just ask yourself, when you said that the Bible is true, what does true mean? If you think about it, Jesus himself often spoke in parables. And here I'm going to quote from Matthew 13, verses 3. Matthew says about Jesus, and he spake many things unto them in parables, saying, behold, a sower went forth to sow, etc., etc. And the parable here of the sower continues for the next 20 verses. Does it make Jesus' word less true because the sower never existed in real life, or because he did not describe an event that actually happened? I don't think so. In Buddhism too, many of the sutras speak in parables. For instance, in the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha uses 7 different parables to explain and unravel the law of supreme perfect enlightenment. He does it in a very simplified manner. The parable make the concept accessible and easy to understand for his disciples. So wasn't Buddha supposed to tell the truth? He's talking in parables. The way I look at it is a good spiritual guide uses whatever tools available to convey the concept that cannot be conveyed by words. They cannot be understood by logic. And these tools are parables, similes, metaphors, drawings, art, everything that can help us understand this deep concept is a legitimate way of using it. More than that, in one of these parables in the Lotus Sutra, Buddha himself tells us that telling untrue stories can be what we need to do sometimes. For instance, he's talking about the parable of the house ablaze. In the same Heart Sutra I was speaking about before. And here I'm having a quote for you. I'll just read from the translation. A rich man was aware that his mansion was ablaze. His children, however, were playing inside the house. He told them to leave the house, but they were too caught up in the games to listen to him. So the father enticed his children out by telling them about 3 kinds of toys outside the mansion: a goat cart, a deer cart, and an ox cart. Having heard about the unusual toys, his children were so excited that they scrambled out to leave the blazing mansion. They were all saved. Was telling the story to the children wrong? Of course it wasn't. So what I'm trying to say here, that there is a difference between truth and between facts. And from my many discussions with people, it seems, especially with people that follow the Bible literally, it seems that too many are obsessed with the historical facts and too few are concerned with the truth. So is the Bible true? Of course it is. It is telling events exactly is it telling the events exactly the way they happened? I'm very curious about it myself. And I always love it when I hear, when they find historical evidence about biblical events. But it doesn't make a real difference to me. The way I read the Bible, I know that every word or phrase has a purpose. And nothing in the text is coincidental. Knowing this, I start looking at the Bible and I see the stories, but more than the stories, I start seeing ambiguities and paradoxes. When I mention paradoxes in the Bible, many will say, no, the Bible doesn't have any paradoxes. They will do everything to deny paradoxes. They'll do everything to show that paradoxes do not exist. But the Bible is about real life. And life is full of paradoxes. Our life, my life, and I'm sure that your life, there are many paradoxes. If the Bible's trying to describe life, it has to have paradoxes in it. And if you claim that paradoxes do not exist, if you read a paradox and say it's not a paradox, it's the same as claiming that things in the Bible are not deliberate. There are things that are not on purpose. That there are mistakes in the Bible, and this is something I cannot accept. So our role, my role as a reader, is not to deny the paradox, but rather to understand that they are there for a purpose. They're there deliberately. And it's my job to contemplate and meditate upon them to find what the purpose is. Now, in this discussion, I want to refer only to the Old Testament, or I prefer to call it the Hebrew Bible. And there are 2 reasons for that. The first reason, in the Bible, the Hebrew Bible talks about life as it is. People often ask me why the God in the Hebrew Bible is fierce and punishing, while the God of the New Testament is loving and compassionate. In my view, this is the wrong question. God is the same God. It's unchanged, both in the New Testament and in the Hebrew Bible, in the Old Testament. The difference is not the God. The difference is what the book is trying to teach us. The Hebrew Bible is a book that teaches us about reality, about how to live in a world that is full of evil, how to cope in this world, how to become a better person in a chaotic reality. It's the very world that the Zen talks about. Zen too did not evolve in some kind of an ideal world. It evolves in the world fraught by the Zen. Wars, diseases, murder, crime, that's part of life. And the Buddhist question comes, there's one of the Zen question, they admire the lotus flower's perfection. And they ask, why does the perfect lotus flower grow from the dirt of the swamps and not in the beauty of the Himalayas mountains? Because to grow, you have to start with a swamp. That's where the growth, that's where the beauty starts. So this is the world of the Hebrew Bible, the same type of world. And the Bible shows us way to becoming better people, more spiritual, closer to God, even though the world is full of evil. Even when the world will put every possible obstacle in our way to spiritual growth, the way to God. The New Testament is doing something else. The law has already been given. On the other hand, what it wants to tell us, it told us about ideals and about hope. The New Testament knows that as hard as we may try, we will always sin. As close as we step towards perfection, we will never achieve it. So the New Testament tells us that as long as we try, we will be taken care of. It tells us that if we put our trust in Jesus and God, our failures, as long as we have tried hard, will all be forgiven. And as a book of hope, it talks about hope and doesn't bother itself to describe the day-to-day harsh reality, pain. And that's the reason we have a good, very different feel when we read the two books. There is another reason why I focus on the Hebrew Bible. I can read the original language. And unfortunately, as much as I tried, I cannot say the same about the language of the New Testament, which is a Koine Greek. And reading the original language makes the whole difference. Of course, many of us know the famous Michelangelo statue of Moses with two horns. This was simple mistranslation because the Hebrew word for horn or for ray of light, aura, is the same word. So they translated aura into he had horn. So Michelangelo read the wrong translation. But this is just an example. Normally the stories themselves are okay, but the Bible is full of paradoxes and ambiguities, and these do not translate well. Let me give you an example. Let me try and share my screen here. Share screen. This one. Do you see my screen now? Okay.
Yeah.
So I suppose everybody or most of you are familiar with the 10 Commandments. In Exodus 20, verses 12, it says, if you look at it here, Lo tirtzach, thou shalt not kill. Okay, that seems to be very simple. 2 words in Hebrew, 3 in English, it should be completely understandable. 4 words in English. But exactly 1 chapter later, instead of Exodus 20:12, in Exodus 21:12, it says, Makeh ish vamet mot yumat. Here is the formal translator from the King James Bible. Basically what he's saying, who he kills a man shall be put to death. How can we reconcile the two? Only a chapter earlier, it tells us we are not allowed to kill anyone. If I'm not allowed to kill, how can we put somebody to death? Is this one of these paradoxes of the Bible? This one is not. This is a problem of translation. And that's the reason, because in Hebrew it says, Lo tirtzach. And the word tirtzach does not mean kill. It means murder. So the definition of murder is close to what in legal terms today we call first-degree murder. So when you read it, all of a sudden the paradox disappears completely. That's the reason I believe that it's so important to look into the original language. So when I talk about koans, if this is not a koan, this is not a paradox. What is a real paradox? A koan in Zen, or the Korean Chinese version, the Chan, is a paradox that does not have a logical solution. The idea is that when you keep meditating upon this unsolvable question, you contemplate it, the mind will eventually change and will come up with a solution. This solution will not come from any external source, but from your own spirit, from your own innermost soul. This is a solution that cannot be conveyed by words. There is no words for that. But this is a solution that is the kernel, it's the seed of our change and of spiritual growth. When we attain this solution, and you hear and you read about people that attain this solution of a koan or a paradox, their perception of the reality changes completely. So finding solutions through koan or paradoxes is very different to being told what the solution is. When you are told that something is true, you may feel happy about it. You may then go on with your lives. You don't need to think about it because you are told what the answer. Quite often you might forget about it altogether. When you have an answer, your spiritual growth finishes, ceases, it's dead. Answers do not support spiritual growth. But when you have a paradox, when you have an open question, you cannot stop thinking about it. And then it's where we start to change. Each day, you may come with a different view, a different answer. Each day you may think that now you have understood it. But you know that tomorrow you may have a different solution, a different understanding. This process reveals to you a bit by it. You go deeper and deeper into your innermost secrets of yourself. You discover yourself. This process changes you. This process purifies you. Paradoxes and open question are the way for any type of growth. It's true in science. That's how science developed. In literature, in art, and definitely we're speaking about spiritual growth. So no wonder that Zen has been using it as one of its main tools to lead to enlightenment. The Bible is full of such paradoxes. Everywhere you look, it's full of them. So let me bring one example, probably my favorite example. Let me just make it a bit more. And this is the story from the beginning of the Bible, Genesis 4. That's the story of Cain and Abel. And the story of Cain and Abel, God did not accept Cain's offering. Cain is upset. God is speaking to Cain. And in verses 6 and 7, God says, Vayomer Adonai el Cain, and God said to Cain, Lama chara lecha? Why are you angry? Velama naflu panecha? And why has your faces fallen? Why are you sad? And then the part, hello, after all, im teitav set, I'll read it in Hebrew and then I'll get into the discussion. Ve'im lo teitav lapetach chatav tozbetz. What it says, if you do good, set, this is this strange word here. And if you will not do good, there is a sin awaiting for you. This is in English, but when you read it in Hebrew, you have a paradox because the word set means to come up or to lift. So one of the solution, one of the interpretation that it means that if you do good, God will always forgive you and good things will happen to you. And if you will do bad, then sin will happen to you. This is one way of reading Bible, this verse in the Bible, or half a verse in the Bible. But you can read it exactly in the very opposite way. It says, if you do good, you may feel good, but if you sin, but sin will awaiting you will be awaiting you regardless whether you do good or whether you do bad. The very same short sentence, the very first 6 words, has 2 opposite interpretations altogether. In the first, you will be rewarded for doing good. In the second, you should do good because good is what you should be doing. Don't expect a reward. So naturally, most interpretation and translation will prefer the former. We have the book of Job that tells us the opposite, but still, we like to think that we will be rewarded if we are good people. We like to think about it. But a few scholars don't agree with that. They see it exactly the opposite. If you do good things for the sake of getting a reward, your good things are not good. You're not a righteous person. You are opportunistic. But for me, the question is not which one of them is correct. For me, the question is different. The Bible sometimes wants to be very clear, and it can be clear. Why here? It uses expression that can mean 2 opposite things. And you never know, if you read the Hebrew, which one is the right one. And the reason is, when you have something that is the Bible says, basically it's a sign. Stop and meditate. For me, this is a paradox. For me, this is a koan. It is something I need to contemplate. And the more I do it, the more I discover about myself, about who I am. Why do I try to be good? Why do I try to avoid doing evil or doing bad things? Is it because I'm afraid to sit in jail? Am I doing the good things that I do and expecting some reward, immediate or maybe later, or maybe to win in heaven? Am I doing things to avoid punishment? The more I meditate upon this, the more my mind, soul, and spirit help me discover things that I hid in myself, that I never knew about myself. Sometimes I feel one way is the right answer. Another day I feel that the opposite is the right answer. And still, there are times that I feel, and that's the amazing time, that both opposites can exist at the same time. This is when I feel that some spiritual growth is happening. And then tomorrow, the day after, I lose it again. But imagine what would happen if I thought that the answer was very simple. If I thought I had an answer. If I do good, good would reward me. Would I have gone through this internal process at all? I know many people that's what they think. They have a very simplistic way of looking at it. So some trying to do good things and are frustrated that God does not make them rich or does not give them what they want, believe that they deserve. Others keep waiting because they believe that later it will come, the reward will come. But whatever they think, they are missing the one very important thing. The opportunity and this wonderful feeling of doing good just because doing good feels good, because it's good to do it. They're missing the here and the now. And this is what meditation upon the many koans in the Bible can bring to our spiritual practice. So when we see a paradox in the Bible, let's not deny that it exists. Instead, let's remember that paradoxes in the Bible have an important role, an important purpose. And if we follow them to the maximum, they will show us our own path. So you can see some of my interpretation in I have a blog. It's www.hebrewbible.net. Look at it. If you like, subscribe. Everything is free. I don't do it for money. I do it because I like that people ask questions. I teach them, and when they ask questions, they teach me. And now I'd be happy to answer if you have any more questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan. That was inspiring and heart-searching. Yeah, I do agree with you. The Bible speaks to us rather than we just read the Bible. And I am also concerned about different translations. One of my friends is a scholar, and he speaks very clearly about this. He doesn't. If I want to keep the Bible in an elevated place or carefully give it a kiss, so he'll say, "Why are you doing it? It's only the paper. It's only a translation. You're not sort of, giving honor to the Word of God, but you are just a paper." So the translations can actually mislead us, and reading the Bible in the root language is so important. I'm touched by the two things that you were talking about. Your stories or parables, and Jesus's parables, and there are parables in the Old Testament as well. But the parables do talk about things beyond our understanding, and we say our parables are heavenly truths about earthly heavenly truths in earthly context, and we simply tell that. But in the way that you brought it in, it is parables have deep meaning, and it makes us think, and doesn't give us answers, direct answers, but it makes us think, and so leading to paradoxes is everything is a paradox. Life is a paradox. Paradoxical is a big study as well, and it can be one answer today, it can be another answer tomorrow, and as things change around us, and your way of allowing the Bible to talk to you, you walk with the Bible, and you walk and talk with the Bible. Theology is supposed to be talking about the Bible, talking about God, and the way you wanted us to meditate on the Word, whatever word. I mean, we Christians will be meditating on the Bible, but I do want to sort of think that we need to find the right version of the Bible, so that we will not miss the real thing that is told. And facts and truth is something that I agree with a lot, and it's easy to be a fundamentalist, easy to just accept every word of it and then forget about it even, and but to live the Bible or live by the Word is something, it's an ongoing journey, and a struggle. That's where I understand we'll have to grapple with, what is it, what is the truth, and how does truth affect us. And so that's just a reflection, but I'm sure others will reflect on it or ask questions, and if you want to say something about what I said, please feel free. Thank you, Ran.
Thank
you. Thank you for your presentation. I really appreciate your thinking and your meditative approach to the Word. I have a verse in Genesis 1:28. Now, in some versions of the Bible, it talks about how God gives and God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over everything that moveth upon the earth. Now, that's one translation. And there's a few translations which include that part about replenishing. But they're amazing. The majority of translations do not use the word replenish. But how modern Western culture sort of interprets having that dominion instead of that stewardship has a profound impact on how our relationship with the rest of creation. So I was wondering if you could give me any clue about the original Hebrew or any thoughts.
And this is again, it's a wonderful example for a paradox, and a wonderful example to discover about yourself. The word is redu. Now, the word is pretty rare word, and it can be used on the whole scale, from take what you need to take anything you want. And what you read in that tells you who you are, in my view, because you can say, oh, the Bible actually tells me to take just what I have to take, just what I need. This is one way. You can come with the exact opposite, say the Bible tells me, go and destroy it all belongs to you. The word is ambiguous word here. So when you go and you start thinking what it means to you, and when I speak to somebody and say, what does it mean to you? All of a sudden say, okay, no, that's not the Bible say. That's the way you think. This is what comes out of you. That's the beauty. For me, you look at something and all of a sudden I say, and personally say, when somebody who speaks Hebrew, look at the word and say, oh, it tells us that we have to take only what we have to. And some other people say, it's a do no. Just basically, it's like a dictator. Go and destroy them all and do whatever you want. And then I say, oh, do you think that that's a job of a dictator? No, dictator as well has ownership and has responsibility to the people. So when you start doing this process, you discover how you think, how you feel, because the word itself in Hebrew, and the reason that people translate it in both ways, because the word itself in Hebrew can mean, when I read it, Veredu bitgat hayam, and you should take what you have to take out of the fish in the sea. And other people say, no, do bitgat hayam, say, I should basically devastate, take everything from the sea and leave nothing there. And the word can mean anything along this scale.
Okay, thank you.
Someone is putting their hand up, and yeah, there are a few. Yes, can I start with Katarzyna, and then go to Ahmed, and then you? Thank you.
I
Yep.
unmute. Do you hear me?
Yep.
Do you hear me? Okay. So I know, the Hebrew Bible a little bit, because, I was raised in Poland, as Roman Catholic, and so I do understand, how much could be lost in translation. It is not only, I think, in Hebrew Bible, but any book which is translated to other language, there is something different. And definitely, what Ron said, the correction he made, I think, that it shows, that it fit, to the universal religion, to any religion like Buddhism, like Hinduism, and so on and so on. Another thing, which I wanted to say, about being lucky to read in original language, like Ron can read Hebrew Bible, is, the melody, of writings. I do now course in Sanskrit, to understand, the sound of Upanishads, which is something absolutely, fantastic. As well, I know, that people who read Quran in original, that Quran, lose absolutely everything translation, because there is melody, there is rhythm, there is something, there's the rhythm, which is divine, which is like Upanishads, the sounds are divine. So probably there is another thing, of reading, in original. In general, the paradoxes in parables, I got, the thought, that, when the Hebrew Bible was written, the conceptual language was not developed yet so deeply. The concepts were developed by stories, and it sometimes, to make concept, there was few version of saying something to understand it. So I think that now, when our language, that any language has more abstract and conceptual, we can express in different way. We can, say it differently. The example is, I have few Jewish friends who study Kabbalah, and they say that it is so complicated, so difficult, so incredibly complicated and hard to understand. And one day I found, the summary of Kabbalah, which had 3 points, and for me, it was totally everything which I got the message, and I remember too. I was trying to remember the third one. The one point is that less is more, sharing, and the third one, which I unfortunately forgotten. So it is my comment, and I am very spiritual. I'm mathematician as well. And I think, that definitely, that the correction which Ron made, make Jewish Bible more unify with other religions. Yeah, it is.
Thank you. Thank you, Katrina. Thank you. And we'll get
Very
Rand
much.
to reflect if you can, if you want to. Yeah.
I just want to make it, it's very interesting what you think, but I just want to say one thing, that when you say that Kabbalah has 3 principles, yes, things have very basic principle, but the principle is something big in our life. Like the one that Tracy asked, for instance, it's nothing matter of principle. It's a question is, do you feel that you take as much as possible? It's a lot of it, the question are not the principle. When we something painful for us, when we have a paradox, when we experience something, it's the little things that give us the solution, that give us the pain, that give us the enlightenment and the joy. So understanding the principle is beautiful, but the importance is that every word that you go and read, it means something. And every word, basically the spiritual process is not understanding the principle, is delving into individual word. I don't say anyone can do it for the entire Bible, but you can find your 5 verses of the Bible. The one that I read to you today is one of my 5 that I like, and you keep going to them. And every time you do it, you just get something. In Zen, traditional Zen, they gave a single koan to a person, send him to the mountain for 20 years to think on one single question. Later, in more modern stuff, they gave them many questions. Quite often, it's not the principle, it's understanding a single word, learning as a photographer or as a painter to do a single line. That's the difference between a spiritual path and having intellectual knowledge. And I think that when people say that Kabbalah is difficult, it's not. The principles are very simple. But when you try to understand every single word, then you discover a lot of new things. That's the way I see it.
In summary, and what I would say, like you said about knowledge, I think, that unfortunately all knowledge we use, based on Newtonian physics or science are, under very, very big question mark, since we discovered, quantum physics, so I would discuss, if I would say, that knowledge is something, I like use, the word knowledge with the word provisional. But, I wouldn't say that wisdom is provisional.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So can you move to Ahmed? Yes, thank you, Ahmed. Thank you, Katrina. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron, for your presentation. I'd like to present a few ideas here, and I wonder whether you could kind of see whether there is any alignment with your thoughts or not. The first one is this, that God, when he presents a revelation, assuming that you agree that all different faiths come from God, when he presents a revelation and he has presented some writings or verses that come with that revelation, that he would not allow those writings or verses to be interfered with. Because if he's presenting a revelation to mankind, he then would not allow those writings to be interfered with, in order that revelation to flourish. The other thing is that you talked about paradoxes. Perhaps in the writings of the revelation of God, these revelations, there are sentences or there are parables or there are ideas that are tests for mankind. And they are there, set there, so that the good and evil in man can be differentiated. Like I'll give you an example that says we test people by gold to see whether their spirit overcomes that test. For example, the revelation of different revelations of God, God sets tests for people. Like, for example, for me, paradox is when in the Bible says that Christ will come on and under his feet there would be clouds. And we know from the physics of today that human body, the density of human body is much higher than the vapor. So that's a paradox. But to me, that's a test for people to differentiate the meaning of that cloud that is under the feet of Christ. So I'm wondering whether, what is your ideas in these things, that God will not allow interference in his revelation at the beginning of the revelation, paradoxes and sections of the text being test for mankind.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is a question for me, John? You want me to answer it? The way I see it, God, yes, he cannot interfere, but it has to be, all this revelation has to be universal. So where you lived 3,000 years ago, and you took your buffalo to sow the soil, or whether you are a lawyer in 2022, the word should mean something, to speak to you. If God spoke in the world in a single way that would speak to the person who is toiling the soil, it wouldn't speak to the lawyer. It has to speak to you. And when it speaks to you, it's different than the way it speaks to me, because we are different people, or it's definitely different to somebody who lived 2,000 years ago. So I think that you say it doesn't interfere. It doesn't tell us anything fixed. It speaks to you and it helps you find what it means to you. And I think this is very, very critical. And you know, going back, let's say, to the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments are pretty simple, most of them. You shall not murder, you should not do this, you should not steal, you should not. And then we come to verse 13. And verse 13 is, do not covet. Now, does God expect us not to covet? Like, am I sinning because I'm doing it? Is it the same to covet something? Or if I murder somebody? It's a completely different thing. One is telling you in a very simple way, you are not allowed to murder. The other one is inspirational. It's talking to you. What does it mean, covet, to me? I can't be judged on coveting with something I do not control. I can aspire to controlling it. I can get every day better, but I can't be judged about something on this and something like committing a murder. And they are all part of the 10 Commandments. So the first one, do not murder, is a commandment, is simple. It was relevant. It meant exactly the same thing 3,000 years ago that it is now. When he said, do not covet, this is a continuous discussion. If you start when you read it the first time, and probably you keep discussing it until your very last day. So when you say revelation, it's not. I think it's a discussion. Some of it is, and some of it is an ever-going discussion because you change. You read it, you change, you read it again, and you read something completely different from what you read yesterday, even though it's the same chapter, the same words. That's the way I read it. That's the way I see it. I don't know if I answered, but that's the best I have.
Thank you, Ran. Yeah. What about Jung? You still have your hand up? Yep. Good. Go for it.
Good evening. Thank you very much for your lecture today. There are a few things here that I just want to ask you. How is the Hebrew language is happening in Vatican, where the Pope still using the Hebrew? And how many people, if you are the professor of the Hebrew language class, how many people you're going to pass them or you're going to fail them? That's what I want to know, the language side of it. The second is, God sometimes talk to people, don't need the Bible. He doesn't go through the Bible, just like apparition of three shepherds at Fatima, Portuguese. The people, the three children, they come from the farm and they don't read. So God doesn't talk to them through readings because they will not understand it. But the apparition by the cloud and everything come to them and make them understood what Virgin Mary wanted to convey. Because writing and reading, you need a level of education to do that. And just like writing an essay, whether people can have high distinctions or just fail or credit or whatever. So that is also depend on the level of spiritual development and training. So that's the other thing. And the why God to create paradox? Because as I heard from everyone, said life is full of paradox and pain and everything. But it is not what God wanted. God never want people face difficulty because he got like thousands of angels to come and help people in suffering. So therefore, the notion of paradox is very individual. And we don't create the earth with paradox because just like why when people write, they got to create paradox, all the people understand it in a way of paradox. Because where is the angel of language? When people write something, the angel is with them. The God with them, guide them through the writing and listening and talking. So they're not by themselves because everything is through God, by his dominion. So people have very little choice. That's what I can see a bit of paradox there. In real life, people have a lot of choices and they have to make their own choice. Otherwise, they'll be facing jail, like you say. You know, like if I do the wrong thing, I'm not a good person, police might catch me. So therefore, you know, say something is not very black and white there. So
I agree. And it's a lot of question. I don't know how much time, but I'll start with the last one, the question of paradox. Sometimes when you read a paradox, it's not a paradox for you. But if you recognize it as a paradox, you know that what you understand, what's right for you, it's not what's right for me. Because our problem with religion, we all follow the word of God, and we people going and killing each other because each of them understand it differently, and they understand that they think that the way that they understand is the only way to understand it. This, I don't care. You can understand, he said, this is the way God speaks to me. But when you understand that he speaks to me differently, and I can read the same verse in a different way, you say, you know something? This is the beauty of the Bible, because it speaks to us differently. And it's not that he speaks to you, he lies to you. He speaks the truth to both of us, and my truth and your truth is different. We're never going to fight. We're never going to disagree. And I'll tell you a story. I was living in Singapore for many years. And, you know, the fact that that's the way I read the Bible, it's not the way that most people in Israel read the Bible. This is because of my lifestyle. Everybody reads differently. My mother, she's a typical Jewish woman. She was afraid, you know, like she's a Jewish. So when we lived in England, she was afraid to go to church because that was the way my kids grew up. You know, they used to play in church and stuff like this. That was there. And when we went to Singapore, she was afraid to go to a temple. And I said, come on, have a look. And we went to a temple, to a Hindu temple. And in the Hindu temple, there is the god monkey and the goddess of mercy, and there is the goddess, there is the god of war, and there's just a lot of them. So he asks you, who are you? You said Jewish. Okay, the god of the Jewish is among the gods over there. Just go and speak to him if you want. For my mother, it was a revelation, because when we live in Israel, we and the Muslim and the Christian believe in the same God, and we are willing to kill each other because we believe in the same God, but they don't believe it in the right way. Here he said, you believe in the God, and he said on the way out, now this month, the goddess of mercy, she's very receptive. Go and stop at her and speak to her on the way. There is no conflict. You accept it. And the role of the paradox in this case, if you believe that you understand it, it's not a paradox for you, you are blessed. Maybe it's a paradox for me, and you have to understand. And you don't have to, we don't have to fight about it. It's true for you. The opposite is true for me. And we can all go and have a dinner together. There's no problem.
But then what you say, Mr. Rang, we need to adopt philosophy approach. The way you said, I don't know whether a lot of people will agree, because people have different ideas like that, how people are going to lead to unity. I mean, unity is something different. And our topic, the main topic here is unity, especially for the interfaith thought. We need to have unity, and we just can't let people go their way now or our way in the way that we think. There are different indoctrination, different theories, different practice, and different background. And we have to come into something, you know?
I agree that I believe in my beliefs, and I completely respect the way that the Bible speaks to you. This is my belief, because I believe that this is the way to peace. This is the way to harmony. Now, there are many people. I'm in minority. The fact is, whenever there's a conflict, everybody's going, and the way of the sword is much more popular than the way of harmony. I cannot fight with people with a sword. I'm not trying to. So you say a lot of people do not accept it. I know they do not accept it. If they accepted it, there wouldn't be so many wars. All I can do is vote the way I understand it. And if other people understand that they need to solve problem with war, disagreements, and because their way is the only one is the right way, I can talk to them. That's all I can do.
Absolutely. Siva, are you going to ask a question?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ran, folks. It's very fascinating that we have come to a place where we are trying to understand each other and to bring unity and peace, and not to fight, as Fran said. First of all, I should say thank you to Ran. It's strange. People here may not know. I had never met Ran before. I never spoke to him before.
Just emails, just by email.
Just by email.
But just on the Nextdoor app, we had dialogue. And the same with Katerina. Katerina? Yes.
Yeah,
I met her also on the Nextdoor app. I had never spoken to her, though we have chatted there. Now, I just wanted to share, if you allow me, this particular quotation from the Universal Justice. The Universal House of Justice is the supreme administrative body of the Baha'i faith. And in a letter that it wrote on the 25th of November 2020, this particular sentence, it was so striking to me. I have been saying this many times in many places. They said, whether through deeds or words, the merit of your very contribution to the social well-being lies first in your resolute commitment to discover that precious point of unity where contrasting perspectives overlap and around which contending peoples can coalesce. This is a forum we are collectively trying to understand each other. As Jung said, we are trying to bring unity. We are trying to remove the prejudices and misunderstanding. But at the same time, we have to respect the freedom of conscience of each and every individual. And so when we have different opinions, if we are trying to bring something good for the society, let us look for that precious point of unity in our discussion. And that is what I wanted to share. And also there was, Ahmed actually mentioned something. This is another, this is a word from the word of Baha'u'llah from the book of Kitab-i-Igan. Again, everyone can understand in the way that they can understand, but there is something probably we may generally accept from this. It says that it is evident unto thee that the birds of heaven and doves of eternity speak a twofold language. One language, the outward language, is devoid of allusions, is unconcealed and unveiled, that it may be a guiding lamp and a beckoning light, whereby wayfarers may attain the heights of holiness, and seekers may advance into the realm of eternal reunion. Such are the unveiled traditions and the evident verses already mentioned. The other language is veiled and concealed, so that whatever lieth hidden in the heart of the malevolent may be made manifest and their innermost being be disclosed. Thus hath Sadiq, son of Muhammad, spoken. God verily will test them and sift them. This is the divine standard. This is the touchstone of God, wherewith he proveth his servants. None apprehended the meaning of these utterances except them whose hearts are assured, whose souls have found favor with God, and whose minds are detached from all else but him. In such utterances, the literal meaning, as generally understood by the people, is not what had been intended. Thus, it is recorded, every knowledge hath 70 meanings, of which one only is known amongst the people. And when the time shall arise, he shall reveal unto men all that which remaineth. He also saith, we speak one word, and by it we intend 170 meanings. Each one of these meanings we can explain. So that the last part of under the quote, I think is from the Quran. Anyway, what I was trying to say is that we are trying to understand each other. We are not here to fight with each other. So thank you, Rand, for arousing such a wonderful discussion. And also, I hope you will come again and give us more enlightenment into the understanding of the Bible. So that's my comments, and thank you.
Thank you, Sivan. And before I hand over to Rand to wind up and have the last word, just to say that listening to all these, God is speaking to us all the time through nature, through events, through other people, and He encounters us in different times, in different places, and different stages of our lives. And my reflection should be to find out who I am in all these. And at the John Powell's book of reflections I'm going through for the last few months, and it's all about searching your own hearts to find out exactly who you are. Tell me who you are, and then I'll tell you then I'll talk to you, because without knowing myself, I can't talk to you, because that's the sort of argument he brings. And it's all about love he speaks, but to know oneself. And Socrates, the famous saying is, in Tamil it says, Unniye ni arivai. That's my Tamil language. That is, know yourself. You yourself know yourself, that type of direct translation. And I think Bible could be read by anyone and understand the way that they understand it in their own context, in their own times, as much as all the other religious books, that whenever we read them, let it speak to us and let us meditate on it to find out what exactly they're telling me, so that I'll know myself. Thank you. And over to you, Rand, to wind up.
Rand, Ave Maria.
I think.
Thank you, Rand.
I
Can
want to
you
raise
want to
another
say
point
anything?
as well.
Ahmad wants to say something.
Yeah. I just want to raise another point. That's that Word of God is God, power of creation. When you look at, I'll give you a metaphor. When the spring comes and everything is refreshed by nature, it has the power of creation. It generates life into everything in the physical world. And the Word of God has got that power. So it is true, Rand, that everyone can get some spirituality, some feelings out of Word of God, like Bible or Quran in Islam. These spiritual words have power of creation. And it generates that spirituality within humanity, within each individual. So it's true that what you're saying, that each individual can gain what they want from these writings.
I think that when you start doing it, you gain much more than what you want. You cannot expect what you're going to gain. You do it, and you discover things that you never imagined before.
Exactly.
So it's not you gain what you want, because when you start, you don't even know what you want.
Yeah. It generates in you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Thank you.
That's what when the Holy Spirit come to you, and that's what is called revelation and manifestation.
Yeah. Every individual, every one of us has the power of grasping that spirit and become more spiritual.
And I don't think it's a matter of intellectual at all.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
to be a smart person does not make you any closer to understanding
Absolutely.
than if you are just, it's nothing to do with being intellectual. You don't have to be able to read. It's just like, I don't think that, we tend to admire intellectual too much in our culture. I don't think it has anything to do with intellectualism.
I totally agree with you. It's the spirit, is the spirit that is
Exactly.
Mm,
and every one of us have it.
absolutely. Everyone has it. Thank you, Ran, and it's really inspiring. And I think in future when I read the Bible, I want the Bible to speak to me, and I want to go with one word or one sentence and keep thinking about it for days and months. So thanks for that. And
This is
suppose we hand over to Siva to
okay. This
say
is
something in wind up.
yeah. Can you see the screen? This is his blog,
At the end of the Hebrew Bible, yeah.
his website,
Yeah.
and also now you can see
Yeah. It comes with the methodology of how you read the Bible and how Zen the way of telling stories. Yeah.
and
So-
also
That's my photography website.
yeah, that's good. Great.
he is a amazing
Gotcha.
photographer. He does photography in martial arts, architecture, and
What about astronomy, astrophotography?
That's
Do you do
I
that?
don't do that one.
No?
I don't do. I prefer to spend my days in the field with birds and animals and bugs. So that's where I spend my time.
Oh, lovely.
yes.
Yeah, one with the nature. Yes. Thank you.
This is. Can you see this one?
Yeah.
You see the logo?
Grand Fuchs, yeah, it's only 3 days ago.
This one is a rainbow moon,
Beautiful.
rainbow color.
Can you see this?
Yeah.
Yes, rainbows.
This is one of his
Beautiful.
photographs, and he has put it on his next door.
Ah,
Yes.
Yeah, I just had my bird photography exhibition the week before last. So
oh,
it just
really?
finished. It just finished now. Yeah, it was it was a lovely
congratulations.
exhibition.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You're very talented.
Yeah. Multi-talented.
We are all-
Multi-talented.
We are all talented, and God has given those.
Yeah. It's good to have multi-interest anyway, and that it makes you the person you are, very open.
And I'm lucky. I'm retired, and I have time to do things now.
Yeah, you are retired.
So
As much as I am retired, right? I retired only last year. So
Yeah,
still
so
looking for what I will
now
do.
you have the time to do all these things.
Yeah, thank you. It is true.
And Tracy has put a comment in the chat.
Uh-huh.
God's vision and hope for us is bigger than what we think.
Absolutely.
To walk the journey.
And I think, Siva, I think I mentioned it to you when we had a chat, and I completely agree with that. And whenever something like this happens, I always think about the story of Joseph.
Yeah.
Because the story of Joseph, when Joseph was, he went from being the beloved son to be a slave and to be in jail. He didn't know what God had for him. He just, all he could see is and it wasn't a nice Australian jail. It was an Egyptian jail. It was basically probably full of rats and not having a bed to sleep and not having a toilet. And he didn't know what God had planned for him. He could have never imagined it. He was just in jail day to day, crying, suffering. And we have only hints how bad it was for him, but we have a few verses that just tell him how bad it was all for him. So we forget it. We always remember him, just becoming the second most powerful person in the world.
Absolutely.
God had a plan for him.
He had a plan. But he had to wait for that to happen. And
Had to wait.
yeah, even in the prison, he would have been prepared to go through that suffering. We were talking about the lotus and the mud, and from where the lotus had to come, not from the mountain. Yeah.
But he couldn't wait because he didn't know that something good will happen. Well, now we know in hindsight.
Yeah.
But when he was in the pit, he
No.
did not think that there was a plan for him to become such a powerful man. I think he was just hoping to survive another day and not to lose. And basically, and that's when he discovered God, actually in jail, that he realized that's, so.
He's suffering.
No, we never know. I completely agree with Tracy's comment.
Yes. Thank you, Tracy. We'll pass it on to Tracy. Yes. Okay.
Can
Thank
we
you.
ask Pina, do you have anything to say if you have not spoken, and anyone who has not spoken?
Thank you so much. I enjoyed listening.
Thank you.
Right.
Yes.
If there is no other comments,
Yes.
we can close.
Wind up. Have a pleasant night, everyone.
Yes.
And we keep in mind what's happening in Ukraine, and pray for peace, and that God will speak to Putin, and also for New South Wales and Queensland going through terrible floods. And tomorrow we don't know what's going to happen in Sydney, but we hope that ultimately people will be safe, and all the living beings. Thank you. Good
It's
night.
World
Thank you
Day
very
of
much.
Prayer tomorrow. It's World Day of Prayer tomorrow.
Yeah, World Day of Prayer.
Yes, it
Time
is.
that we need to bind together
Absolutely.
for all humanity.
All humanity. Thank you, Trace.
And Pankaj also says thank you. And
Thank you.
thank you, Ryan, and
Thank you, everyone.
thank you,
Bye.
John Jagat Sodhi for emceeing. And
No worries. Thank you.
God
It was
bless
a
you.
pleasure meeting you.
I know.
Happy
God.
Blessings.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye,
Bye.
Ryan. Bye.
Ave Maria.